Welcome to Connecting Hope, presented by Aspire Indiana Health. I'm Will Hampton, along with Daryl Mitchell, and we're here for another week. And I tell you, what I have seen each and every week when we talk about our success stories, we talk a lot about people in this world. Faith. Faith plays a large role, doesn't it?
Oh, it's significant. There has to be a spiritual component of some kind as part of the recovery process, because that's a very important part of our makeup, our hearts. So we have to be touched in some way, and our faith and a belief in God. Oftentimes the recovery community refers to higher power. So that it's roomy and broad. But my recovery wouldn't be possible without that spiritual foundation. For me, it is conscious contact with God. And what I mean by that is being able to talk about recovery and to be of service to other people. I heard somebody say, if you want to love God, love his kids. And, I think that's a big piece of it.
Accountability is a big piece of it.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
So many great groups around here and different organizations that do this kind of recovery work. One of them is called the New Day Center, headed up by Dan Johnson. They've kind of started and restarted, and they do good work, don't they?
They do, and it's great to see a faith-based treatment facility, those kind of services, because there is no one single way to recovery. There's different pathways, so it's fantastic to see a faith-based organization.
Let's hear about his book and also the New Day Center with the founder and president, Mr. Dan Johnson.
What makes us unique is that we blend together both evidence-based treatment along with a spiritual course that includes help for those that are Christians and desire to see their recovery have a fairly strong spiritual component to it. And there's lots of studies and lots of evidence that those that include a spiritual element, essentially where they recognize that the power of change is not so much from an external point of view, but it's an internal that then has an influence on the externals. And so it's from the heart out rather than from the out in. The primary book that we use with our clients is called The Journey to Freedom. And the way The Journey to Freedom is set up is that it's 26 fairly short chapters. And it's based on the journey of the children of Israel in the Old Testament of the Bible as they escaped the bondage in Egypt, and they went through the wilderness and then ultimately to the Promised Land. We look at those three kind of phases of a season when they were in bondage, when there was a force that was stronger than them that controlled their lives. Then they got out by the power of God. But then there was this season where they were in this wilderness experience where they were learning new habits and a new way of living. And we liken that to the journey of recovery. We use the book in a couple of ways. One is that sometimes there are people that they're not ready for any formal treatment program. They're not ready to attend a group meeting or whatever. And so it can be a way for somebody to kind of begin and to have something they can work through. 26 chapters takes about a month. We encourage people to read a chapter a day. There's some questions at the end of each chapter. And to just begin to mentally process and think about, okay, I'm ready to go a different direction. And then we also use it in some of our other programs with regard to like post-treatment and aftercare and that sort of thing as well.
The Journey to Freedom, it's a great book, and Dan Johnson's doing great work. We thank you for doing what you're doing, for joining us here really on Connecting Hope. And I tell you, the thing, Daryl, that I see is with the faith, some of our success stories, almost every one of them, they're connected through that, aren't they?
They are, and I think we're going to hear some of that in John's story, coming up. I was at Progress House when John came through our program, and I've seen his recovery, based on spiritual principles, change his life.
Yeah. Well, let's get to it. Our success story for this week, it is part one of John's story.
The beast of addiction was unleashed in me probably when I was in 8th grade. I sustained a pretty traumatic injury in a high school sporting event, and I was given a prescription of pain medication that I took, and not only did it relieve the pain, but it took me to a different place inside of me. It made me feel things that I'd never felt before, and took away, yes, the physical pain, but also a lot of mental pain, and put things out of sight, out of mind for me. Growing up, I had a father who didn't know he was an addict, but took pain medication on a very regular basis for his back. And the transition from my medication to getting into his medication was very easy for me. He would give me a lot of his pills, and that continued the out of control spiral. Once out of high school, like a lot of people, I started drinking with my friends, so I was mixing opiates, marijuana, and alcohol on a regular basis. And finally, my life really got out of control after probably about 10 years of that. I hit it pretty well for about 6 to 8 years, and about 10 years into that, I had a family member come to me and tell me that I needed help, and I didn't believe them. I thought I could do it on my own. And I started selling things to support my habit. I would steal things to support my habit. Any way I could get money other than my paycheck, which was gone Friday by the time I got home, to a drug dealer, I would do to support my habit so that I didn't get dope sick.
Again, that's just part one. Part two coming up of John's story later on. But he puts it really in perspective, doesn't he, as far as where he's been and what he's working on.
Yeah, I like John's real life talk,
Yeah.
A very practical way. It's so inspiring to see and to hear these stories of people changing their life, literally changing their life.
Yeah, we're going to hear much more from him in part two of John's story. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Hamilton County Youth Assistance. What's that all about? Well, we'll find out next on Connecting Hope. Welcome back to Connecting Hope, presented by Aspire Indiana Health. I'm Will Hampton along with Daryl Mitchell, and we just got a new guest, a new show. Good to have you here, Brandy Egan from the Hamilton County Youth Assistance, but focused on the Noblesville Youth Assistance. It's a program that's been around a while, but a lot of people are still kind of learning what the Youth Assistance is all about. What primarily do you see as your goal or your focus?
So our main focus is to work with children who might be, families and children that are facing challenging life circumstances, whatever that may look like. And it's different for each and every family pretty much that we work with, but just to work with them and connect them to the resources needed. Sometimes if we don't have that resource, we create it ourselves, and to try to just change whatever it is that's going on within that family, and hopefully keep that family on the right path.
How does the family learn about you and your services? Is it through the schools?
The schools are our primary referral resource. We also get referrals through the prosecutor's office. So like attendance issues, because a lot of times attendance can be an indicator that maybe there's just something going on either with the child or in the home where they just need some extra help. Status offenses, things like that, first-time offenses, we get sent referrals for those just to see if we can kind of turn around what's going on. Mm-hmm. We also get referrals from other organizations that work with youth, DCS, some different youth-serving organizations.
So last year with COVID, there was an impact that had on children in need, families in need, because everybody was forced to be together for longer periods. So, did you notice a shift or an increase in the seriousness of the type of situations that you were offering support for? How has COVID affected the work that you're doing?
Actually, it actually lessened the number of referrals that we received because the schools were, our main referring resource, and DCS and things like that. And so, DCS's, referrals were down too. And so everybody across the board, we just weren't, I know that there were kids that weren't being reached that would have been being reached had they been in school and been, in that environment where somebody's talking to them every day and finding out what's going on. Other than that, I do think the needs of the community have changed, or I guess maybe the ways that we're serving the community has changed. I mean, we've had to help with things that we normally wouldn't necessarily help with because it's a larger financial ask. But when that's going to keep a family in their home, that's kind of what you do.
So, I mean, your programs, they run the gamut. There's all kinds of, but as it relates to Connecting Hope, you do a lot with substance abuse as far as prevention, the mentoring of those students and families to try to first get them off that track if they're on that track, correct?
Yes. We have a mentoring program that most of our youth assistance programs here within Hamilton County have. And, a big part of that is just trying to get a role model or a parent, somebody other than a parent in that child's life. If that parent's having some struggles themselves, then we want them to have somebody that can be there for them to talk to as another sort of adult in their life.
Yeah. I know you also do tutoring assistance. How has that worked with COVID? Are you still able to get the volunteers that you need to, or maybe it's all online now? I'm not sure. How's it work?
Well, that's another one of the things for us that has been impacted greatly with all of this. Speaking from Noblesville Youth Assistance, what we do typically, we run tutoring programs within the middle schools and the high school. And right now, they're not allowing any outside, people into the schools, and rightfully so. So we've had to put those programs on hold. And so what we've actually started doing is doing virtual tutoring and, asking, for volunteers that are willing to FaceTime, Zoom, whatever that child or family's comfortable with, just for 1 hour a week at minimum to try to help, there's a lot of kids that are struggling right now, especially, some of the older kids who are half virtual and half in person, at Noblesville.
Yeah.
And in some of the other districts, they've gone back to all virtual. So it's,
Yeah. What is I'm putting you on the spot here, a success story or something that just really triggers your mind of a time, an instance, a family, without mentioning names, just a time where you really felt like you guys did what you were designed to do?
I was referred, somebody, a teenager he was a freshman. He was failing pretty much every grade or every class, had no friends, had suicidal ideations, had, gone to a stress center numerous times. And mom was just kind of at her wit's end. And essentially just in working with them and getting the right resources in place and getting them connected to like wraparound services and some extra mentors in his life, getting him in the right sort of therapies and counseling. He actually graduated this last year.
Great.
And is going to college, and he has a girlfriend and friends, and so that's about as successful as it gets.
That's really successful. and that's right there, I'm sure triggers in your line of work as well. When you see that you've touched a life and you've helped someone, that's why you do what you do, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I hear, Brandy, with all the changes that are going on and some of the programs you're unable to, to actually offer, it's great that you're, staying the course because there's going to be a significant need when things begin to normalize. And I think your services are going to be very much needed at that point. So
I think you are right.
So thanks for continuing to just stay the course.
If people are watching this and they say, okay, I know a family or I know someone, what's the best way to reach out to you? Is it website? Is there a phone number? What's the best way? And what typically is kind of the steps that have to take place to get involved?
Well, if they were to go to HamiltonCountyYouthAssistance.org, they can. There's ways, information, and like to contact each individual program if they wanted to, reach out specifically to Noblesville or Fishers or Carmel. But there's also just a general email address on there. And if they were to email those or to reach out even to, I know like on Noblesville's, my cell phone is the number that's listed by my name. And so if they were just to call any of those contact numbers or reach out, somebody's going to get back with them.
Yeah. So that's direct contact, immediate contact, it sounds like.
I mean, as immediate as it can get, but yes. And if they're not comfortable with that, if they want to speak to their school's guidance counselor,
Okay.
Or social worker, if they have social workers, they're going to know how to get into contact with us also.
Well, great. So the Noblesville Youth Assistance just Hamilton County Youth Assistance.org. All right. Thank you very much, Brandy.
You're welcome.
All right. We appreciate
Thank
you
you.
watching Connecting Hope. We're back right after this with more. Welcome back to Connecting Hope, presented by Aspire Indiana Health. Will Hampton, along with Daryl Mitchell. And I tell you, Aspire Indiana, as we move the calendar into 2021, big plans, big things coming up this year for you guys?
Very big things. So we're expanding our Noblesville campus. We're going to be building on there and creating additional space to serve more. And then we're opening up Mockingbird Hill, our treatment facility in Anderson, in the spring, which will be serving the areas that are around Anderson. I actually think people will come from different parts of the state. So we'll have an entire whole health recovery continuum where you can go to treatment if that's necessary, get withdrawal management, move into recovery residences or outpatient services.
We need to get you back on sometime and just talk about Madison County, about Anderson. That would be great.
Love to.
Okay, but right now it's part 2 of tonight's success story, part 2 of John's story.
I finally went and got help here at the Progress House in Indianapolis, and I learned a new way of life. I learned what true friendship was. I learned what a brotherhood was. I learned how to work a 12-step program, how to find a power higher than myself, find God, and to know that I'm not Him, and to live by His will and not my will. And it was structured. It was, you're in a house with 60 to 100 guys who are in the same boat, who are in the same shoes, who have went down the same path, done the same things that I had done. And for me, a lot of times I would feel like no one could be worse than me. Like I was the worst of the worst. I had done things that no other human being could have fathomed doing. But come to find out, a lot of those guys have done the exact same things, and some have done worse things than I have done. So that group of guys that I was with at that time, and the staff there, and the people who would come into the building for outside meetings, I learned a lot about not only me, but about what I needed to do to be a better person. So the structure was good, the love that place pours out, and through the power of prayer and through God's will, today I'm free, the chains are broken, and I've went from a homeless, strung out felon, in and out of jail, in and out of, sleeping in a car or a hotel, to being a homeowner and a small business owner, happily married, and giving back what was so freely given to me through a 12-step program of AA and NA. Our company now, we hire people who are fresh into recovery. We work with one of our local county jails facilitating Narcotics Anonymous meetings to the inmates there to give them a leg up, so that when they get out, they'll have some tools to work with, like I did when I got released and went to the Progress House. I had some tools to work with. I was given things. I paid attention in meetings, and those things stick with me. And the program tells us to give away what was so freely given to us, and that's a mantra that we use at our household now, is to help the next person.
Thank you, John, for sharing your story. Like we said earlier, this is a guy that just kind of has it licked right now, but he knows he's still working on it.
Absolutely. One day at a time, is what we talk about. So it's, John is a miracle. I saw him when he came in to recovery. So to see and hear him today, it's just, it's a blessing.
It is. We're going to take a break. We're back with more Connecting Hope after this. This is Connecting Hope, presented by Aspire Indiana Health. I'm Will Hampton, along with Daryl Mitchell, and I do want to thank you again for your sponsorship. But because of you and Aspire Indiana, we're able to continue this show. We're trying to touch people's lives and get in their living rooms, so to speak. But these stories, tell me from your perspective what it means to hear these stories.
It's so encouraging. It reminds me, what brought me into this work. I was not in this field, and somebody was there whenever I needed their help. And it changed my life in such a dramatic way that I wanted to do this professionally and look for ways to be of service. So this is just such a great reminder to me. And I'm just thrilled that you will, the network is giving voice to this very important issue. We hear a lot about addiction and trouble, but to hear about recovery and hope is fantastic. So thank you.
And thank you for co-hosting, jumping in for Monica Greer.
Sure.
I think she might be back next time. I'm not sure. We'll see. But thank you for watching Connecting Hope, presented by Aspire Indiana Health. See you next time.